Yo, it's one of the guys. This Houston Sports Talk back in the video day, and today the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Cincinnati Bengals 34-27 in the preseason, and I thought this was a great game by the Eagles. I know their starters weren't playing, but the fact that they got the performance they did from Tanner McKee in this game yesterday, 20 for 25, 252 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He did have a rushing touchdown as well in the tush push. He played 2.5 quarters. They scored 27 points, and he's a backup quarterback, a guy who was a third string last year for this team, and a good chunk of his scores in the first half were going up against the Cincinnati Bengals defensive starters. The Bengals only had 4 starters that weren't playing on their defense yesterday, and so the Bengals were playing 7 of their 11 defensive starters, and Tanner McKee still had the game he did yesterday. I was very impressed with what he did. He looked very accurate, and this is a great backup quarterback for the Eagles. I'm not going to say I think the Eagles made a good decision, but it was a risky decision for the Eagles trading away Kenny Pickett, their backup quarterback, to take a chance on Tanner McKee, a guy who really the only experience he had was against the Dallas Cowboys in Week 17, and he did do solid for the Eagles in that game, but he comes in and plays well. I think that gives you a lot of confidence because Jalen Hurts goes down for a game or two, and I'm not going to rule that out. Like a guy like Jalen Hurts we saw last year get a concussion, Jalen Hurts takes a lot of hits, right? We saw the year before that he had the sickness a little bit. Jalen Hurts is a guy who runs the football. We see the tush pushes all the time. He takes a lot of hits. There's always going to be a chance of injury. So to have a great quarterback, a great backup quarterback like Tanner McKee, who showed what he showed yesterday, I think you've got to be very confident in this kid if anything were to happen to Jalen Hurts. Especially if you're going to come in and you have Saquon Barkley, great offensive line, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. I mean, this is how he looked yesterday playing with Johnny Wilson and Will Shipley. I mean, imagine how he could look playing next to A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, that offensive line, and Saquon Barkley. I'm not saying he should be the starter. I'm just saying, God forbid anything happens to Hurts. This is a guy you should be confident in, and I don't know if you really had a lot of confidence in him before this game. I thought that the Eagles' backup quarterback was maybe up for grabs before yesterday's game with, Dorian Thompson-Robinson and Kyle McCord potentially having a small shot to get it. But no, I think the backup job is definitely going to belong to Tanner McKee. But we did see Cincinnati play their offensive starters in this game, and Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense looked great. 2 drives. Burrow, first pass, looks terrible, throws to T. Higgins, way overthrow. After that, Burrow throws 9 for 9 with 123 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns. Burrow threw 90% through 10 passes and looked absolutely amazing after that first incompletion to T. Higgins. He connected with Jamar Chase on a screen pass touchdown, which honestly, this touchdown reminded me a lot of the touchdown that Jamar Chase scored last season against the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football. And he also connected with Tanner Hudson on a touchdown pass as well. This is a 12-yard touchdown pass for Burrow to Hudson. And so, I thought Burrow looked great. I thought the offense was good. Chase Brown even looked solid, too. He had 23 rushing yards in 5 carries. So Chase Brown looked good. Joe Burrow looked good. T. Higgins didn't really do anything. He didn't do much, but Joe Burrow looked good. Jamar Chase looked great. And Chase Brown looked great. Tanner Hudson looked great as well. I didn't understand, late in the game, Tanner Hudson was still playing. Tanner Hudson was a guy who was playing early with the starters, because he is, you could say, their backup tight end outside of Mike Gesicki. He's playing early in the starters. First drive, scores a touchdown. It's not often you see that. A guy who's playing with the first strings, like Tanner Hudson was early in the game, and gets a touchdown thrown to him by Joe Burrow. Then later in the game, Tanner Hudson gets another touchdown, same amount of yards, 12-yard touchdown for Tanner Hudson, and it's thrown by Desmond Ridder in the fourth quarter with the third-string quarterback. That is definitely interesting. The fact that you saw Tanner Hudson playing with both the first-stringers and the third-stringers. Definitely makes me think that Tanner Hudson potentially could be in trouble of losing his spot. because they do have Mike Gesicki and just signed Noah Fant. If they really want to see Tanner Hudson that much, makes me think he's fighting for something here. But yeah, so the scoring summary started off with Joe Burrow throwing that 12-yard touchdown pass to Tanner Hudson. Then Tanner McKee with the 1-yard touchdown run. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase connect for 36 yards, 14-7. He walks in. Jake Elliott then it was all Eagles after that mainly because they go on a 17-0 run, and it is a 44-yard field goal for Elliott. Then Tanner McKee connects with Aeneas Smith on a 6-yard touchdown catch, and then Tanner McKee throws to Darius Cooper on a 20-yard play. It's 24-14. And this was McKee's last drive with the Eagles. A 23-yard field goal, 27-14. McPherson knocks in a 36-yarder to make it 17-24. Then Derek Powell with a 2-yard touchdown run for the Eagles to make it 34-17. McPherson from 51 is good, 34-20. And then Desmond Ridder throws to Tanner Hudson for a 12-yard touchdown pass. It's 34-27. Game leaders, Burrow, like I said, was 9 for 10, 123 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. Tanner McKee, 20 for 25, 252 passing yards, and 2 passing touchdowns. Brooks, 10 carries, 26 rushing yards. Will Shipley, I thought, looked amazing. This is a guy that you got to be excited for being the backup this year for Saquon. 7 carries, 48 rushing yards. Jamar Chase led the Bengals in receiving yards with 4 receptions, 77 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. Darius Cooper had 6 receptions for 82 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. Other stats outside of that, Ridder looked good. Or looked solid. 1 touchdown pass, 91 passing yards, 7 for 16. Jake Browning actually didn't look that great. I thought Ridder actually looked better than Browning today, which surprised me. Browning threw 6 for 14, 62 passing yards, 1 interception thrown compared to Ridder's 7 for 16, 91 passing yards, and 1 touchdown. Dorian Thompson-Robinson actually looked pretty good. 5 for 8, 56 passing yards. They scored a touchdown on one of his drives. And he also... I thought he ran for some, but he didn't actually run for any yards. Kyle McCord looked awful, 1 for 5, but the couple possessions he got, he did throw 1 interception, but the couple of possessions he got, they were not really in the throwing mode since they were up big. He threw 1 for 5 with 8 passing yards and 1 interception. Derek Powell, 6 carries, 32 rushing yards. I'm sure this had to feel great for A.J. Dillon to get back out there, and he did. 5 carries and 27 rushing yards for A.J. Dillon. If Will Shipley's going to want that backup spot, he's going to have to compete a little bit with A.J. Dillon. Great game for him today. Like I mentioned, Chase Brown had 5 and 23. Tanner Hudson was all over the place today. Yesterday, 6 receptions. He led the Bengals in receptions with 62 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. Johnny Wilson, I thought, is a guy that really impressed me from the Philadelphia Eagles. 3 receptions, 73 receiving yards. He had some very impressive catches in this game. I think he's a guy that definitely could earn himself a spot for the Philadelphia Eagles, as a wide receiver 4 or something like that. And then that was really it. I mean, Chase Brown also had 3 receptions for 25 receiving yards. Jermaine Burton only had 1 reception for 3 receiving yards. T. Higgins had that 1 target to open up the game, didn't get targeted again by Joe Burrow. But that was it. Bengals lose 34-27. I would be impressed with this offense. I think the goal of playing the offense a lot early in the preseason is wanting to get off to a better start in the regular season, since Zach Taylor has a terrible record in his coaching career at the Bengals in the first 2 weeks of the season, being 1-11 in the first 2 weeks of the season. I think that is the goal for the Bengals here. I think in the next game we see these guys together and they're continuing to get work. I try to give T. Higgins some more reps. Like Jamar Chase got a lot of targets. Like that's great. Jamar Chase deserves that. He was 4 for 4 today. 4 targets, 4 receptions. And I know T. Higgins had the bad start of the game where it was a little bit of a bad throw by Joe. T. Higgins couldn't haul it down, and then that was it. That was his only target. I think in the next game, try to get T. Higgins more involved. Try to get maybe Oshivas more involved. He was in this game. I don't think he had any targets. So I would say just try to get more people involved, and I think that would be great for the Bengals, because the goal is, I think the whole goal of playing your starters a lot early in the preseason is to try to get the record in the first 2 weeks of the season better. Since Zach Taylor in 6 seasons only has 1 win in the first 2 weeks of the season. That is terrible. And I think that's what Zach Taylor is trying to change here. They always bounce back from their terrible starts, but sometimes it is too late. Like last year, you start off 0-3, they finish with a really good 9-8 record, right? So you start off 0-3, and then you finish 9-8. That's after the first 3 weeks of the season, going 9-5. That's really good. If the Bengals could have got 1 or 2 wins, or maybe just 1 win, if the Bengals could have just got 1 win at the end of the season, 1 win at the beginning of the season in the first 3 weeks of the season, they would have probably made the playoffs. And I think that's something you want to change. Not getting off to bad starts. I think the Bengals have a little bit of the easier schedule this year to try to get a couple wins throughout the first 3 games, because they have the Browns and the Jags in the first 2 weeks of the season, which are solid teams, but I think that's easy for the Bengals. Let me know your thoughts on the 34-27 win for the Eagles in the comment section, and peace out.